Um, Unless you're an elected official, then we give you 6 because you represent a broader geographic area. And with that being said, let's jump right into demolition review for 1361 Broadway. This is Harmony Prima Lofts, Hirschberg. Demolition of 3 existing parking structures totaling 6,444 square feet in accommodation for the construction of a 274,875 square foot building to include 220 dwelling units, 132 first floor parking spaces, 95 surface lot parking spaces, and 10 garage parking spaces. Get us a demolition review and development plan review. We've seen it before, early part of last year, Q2 of last year, and prepared to hear again.
All right. Nick Daniel, Hirschberg. This is the application for new apartment building and removal of parking garages that are on site currently. On site, the parking spaces provided, first level parking of the building. Next slide, please. Here's the project location. It's right basically in the border of Albany and Manans. It's in the MUCU district. Just like, okay. There you go. There's the existing site as is, on the Albany side to the south and the Manans side to the north. On the Albany side, there's only parking structures, and most of it is all pavement. There's still primary building here. I believe it serves these self-storage on the north side. Next slide, please. Here's a proposed site plan. The building is the L-shaped at the bottom of the screen. This 5-story building, first floor parking, 4 levels of apartments, associated service parking, utilities, all that included as well. The next slide, please. Here's landscaping provided in all the islands. The majority of the grass area is left vacant as we're not really disturbing it. But landscaping is heavily provided along the building face and parking areas. Utilities, we have a water extension going to the site, hydrant. Sanitary sewer goes out to Broadway. Stormwater is collected to the site, treated with a hydrodynamic separator, and then sent back out to the storm sewer on Broadway. And here's the aerial view. We did receive comments from all staff, and they're currently undergoing review. But this is the latest architectural plan that we have provided. And first floor of the building, all parking spots. And first floor units, leasing office and REIT. And the rest of the floors are fairly uniform. They're all just units consistently. And here's the elevation, our latest elevations. We did receive comments, but these are the latest we provided to staff.
What was that green?
Can you look at the side, please? So the elevation needs to be adjusted.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was not the one who worked on this project. I was not volunteered to be here. I believe that is
There's the screening for the parking area.
it's fencing with like a slotted or a screen.
Yeah, and part of what we were requesting was just additional details on that, but the color was too I like the fact that it'll be screened on the, so it doesn't, just see right into the park garage.
And so is that then, is it like a trellis that seems to plant those, or is it?
I don't believe there were plans proposed for it, but it depends what's gonna be included in the details to be submitted.
I'd say that's fine.
Yeah.
That's it. Board members, any questions?
How old are the garages that are used?
To the state in our demolition? Doesn't, I do not know off the top of my head. If we would put that, yes, it would be so. Yep, I do not know.
Sort of in terms of- Yeah, there's a pool there, they're next to the pond, right?
Yes,
So they're actually not in the way of the existing building, but it's in the program.
right, I'm not sure if there's or, I did not have the application with me.
Right there, actually, there's not been right now.
In the front.
There's, I believe on the opposite side of the pond as well. There are a couple of them.
So perhaps those are one. Okay, so those are gonna stay. in the-
It wraps around, and also there's some, I believe, that go onto the van side.
In the comments, were you asked if they had further developments or I'm sure to identify what others.
I do not know, I haven't received the letters, all I know is that we did submit responses to previous comments, was that in the letter?
Yes, just to update, so we had one set of responses that were submitted to us based on late last year. We provided additional list of deficiencies, like a final one, which is what is included in your staff memo. And we're waiting on responses. We've gotten a couple things from that packet. We're waiting on additional responses. So details to say the EV chargers, details. There's some things that are on the site plan that don't line up with the elevation. So those things they're going to address. There is there's some amenities and bike parking. They've submitted an updated site plan, which they've addressed some additional bike parking there. So I've addressed some comments, but that package just came in a day ago. So we're still working and that's still coming in. We're waiting on a geotech report that another department's requested. And then we're waiting on the IDA information. Do you have that information about the IDA? If the IDA is involved, so we're waiting on that. And then we're also waiting on the affordable housing units and which units, where, and how many.
Go back to
The site plan itself?
oh, I see. So Broadway. You're just providing one.
Yeah.
There's no other.
Right. Yep.
A lot of my questions are things that I know you've already requested, so I don't. But I have other questions.
Contemplate or anything from a staff perspective we want to review tonight?
I don't believe so at my end. They're the list of things that are outstanding. I think if we could have those addressed, we could have a fuller conversation. Avi, do you?
No, just to state again to the record, this was a type 1 action under seeker, and the board had issued a negative declaration back in April of last year. We received the recommendations from the county. Really nothing out of the ordinary there. Typical permits to be applied for, which the applicants acknowledged. Another comments for the fire department to evaluate for public safety. They're part of the review process, so it's already being completed. I guess some of the things that are called out in here, but just to reiterate, would be the areas on the plan that are referred to as like amenity. Just we need the details to establish what that actually is. Understand that some of that might change a little bit as you know, construction were to be ongoing, and there's certain elements that aren't included, but we do have to have those details. I believe there was also information regarding the laundry units that wasn't included as part of the code for any residential construction with 20 or more units. Laundry facilities. So I know the applicant has stated that they will be provided, but we have to see those on the floor plan. And then there was just some additional questions in regards to the parking lot. There's a couple areas on the plan that were a little confusing as to if it was going to be used as a paved asphalt path or concrete, or if it was if the snow storage was going to be pushing, you know, into some of those areas. We just want to make sure that the snow storage would be located in areas that does not interfere with any of the outdoor amenities or recreation space. Understanding that many people probably won't be using it, but still just trying to avoid, you know, damaging the landscaping and other things that were done there. And then if there were any additional details to the rooftop recreational area, those would be submitted as well. I believe that's it at this time.
What about the elevation should be amended? Was that what we saw?
That was not, you know, that was part of the submission had previously. What we've asked the applicants that when they resubmit, that we get all the documents at the same time. So we're not looking at the floor plan that's updated with the site plan that's slightly outdated. So I anticipate those will all be part of the same submission, the resubmission.
All questions, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is a demolition review for 810 Madison Avenue. The applicant is St. Mary and St. George Coptic Orthodox Church. And a representing agent Jackson Demolition Services Inc. Looking to the demolition of a 2,968 square foot building. And this is the first appearance on an agenda. Please.
Kind of like first planning board here. So
All good, we'll get you through it. All right, so we have a PowerPoint. Next slide. Just give us a little bit of information about the location and what we hope to do with this project.
So the location is obviously on Madison Ave. It's in the MUNE district, with R2 MUNC bordering it. They're looking to demolish this house. Current condition, the house is in, and the cost to repair the house is astronomical. They're looking to just demo the house, put it back to the green space for church use. So that's a little playground there for their children in the church. Couple park benches for their patrons to use. As you can see on the outside, it doesn't look horrible. There are cracks in the foundation. Prior to the church owning the house, they owned it a little less than a year. There was no power or anything, so the basement had flooded. There's significant damage to the foundations. Next slide. Interior, prior to the church owning it, people had gone in there, demolished walls, cut out all the copper. There's leaks all over, so there's significant damage throughout the whole interior of the house.
That's it.
Um, let's do questions from the public first, and then we'll do board comments. So, Julie, 100. Thank you. She's going to replace you.
Okay.
If we have any questions, we'll call you back up. All right. So don't leave. Julie, please,
Hello.
please state your address for the record.
Julie Lundgren, and I live at 51 Albany. Tonight I'm going to speak on behalf of the Historic Albany Foundation, comments from myself and Karen Matthews, the Preservation Director of Preservation Services. So this property at 810 Madison Avenue was in use fairly recently. Still just together just 1 year ago in its current condition and purchased with the intent to demolish, so it has been vacant since. The photos that were provided in the packet when we showed the exterior. And the engineer's report shows an apartment building that has indeed been used and needs repairs, a common scenario. However, there is not a convincing case for the building to be torn down rather than repaired. Pine Hills is a very desirable neighborhood, and another owner would rehab this building, taking away taxable homes and replacing them with green space is not a good use of land or helpful to the neighborhood. The church already has a small yard behind the sanctuary, where they have slides and swings. There are also substantial parking lots and open space behind 810 and the adjacent house that could be better utilized. This is a self-created hardship, and tear down it is not the best use. However, if the demolition does go ahead, then Historic Albany would ask that the church allow Historic Albany to salvage any historic materials that might still be there, such as doors, banisters that were visible in the photo we saw today, and any fixtures so they can be reused. Thank you.
Or do we have questions for the applicant or Historic Albany?
I have a question for the applicant relating to the proper hazardous material testing before demolition. Are you assuming proper?
Yes, there has been a report and all of the asbestos has been reviewed. Yes,
By you?
by a subcontractor, Jackson. Yes.
Have you provided that report?
I believe they have submitted
The
it.
hazardous material test? I'm just curious, why it was proper.
Yeah, if it's not in the file, we can certainly put it in there. I don't know if it was submitted directly to us or through the building department, but either way, we'll have a record of it.
Okay.
Any additional questions? All right, I don't, staff, anything to add before we move?
Some general comments. So we know the building was originally constructed around 1900. appears like it was built as a residential use at some point, according to our records, and then converted to include residential and a professional office. Properties were noticed in the MUNE zoning districts, and the purpose of the zoning district is to provide for moderate density housing options and development. It's typically characterized as more dense development to some extent, especially when compared to other residential or to residential areas. Often with buildings being a little bit closer to each other and providing more street wall. When we look at this 800 block of Madison's, comprised mostly of downtown rural style houses, along with some two unit dwellings and some converted residences with some businesses. Again, it really does have this pretty well-defined streetscape and street wall. Like some of the other areas as you travel down the block. We do have a record of citations in 2022 for some code violations, including vacant building registry. So the building was registered as vacant just prior to it being transferred in ownership. We also noted that the church, that the main owner of this property owns the adjacent properties at 844, 820, 808A and 808B, as well as 806 Madison, and then just on the other side of the block at 453 8th Street. Many of them seem to be a similar style building construction. We do have some questions as far as the engineering report is concerned, just in terms of some of the costs, not really aligned with what we've seen in other projects and the pictures that were provided. So providing some additional information, like for example, you mentioned the foundation being in very good condition. From what we looked at from the exterior, honestly, it seems like it's in pretty decent condition, obviously with some repairs needed. But without seeing the interior, it's hard to make a determination that it actually needs to be replaced. There was some information pertaining to like stairs costing like 32,000. Just kind of how some of those numbers were arrived at. You know, if it's damage that's more cosmetic or minor in nature, I mean, that would be expected to be repaired and maintained, but you know, where there's information that can be provided to substantiate the engineering report cost assessment, that would be very helpful for the board to make that determination. We would also recommend that the applicant provide, you know, what alternatives, if any, were sought prior to the demolition. Just noting that they did purchase it roughly a year ago, and it appears that they purchased it with the intent to demolition or to demo. And then just a reminder that the planning board should evaluate the project using the review criteria found in the USDO. It's, you know, different from criteria we have for other applications, but specifically looks at, you know, alternatives. Is there, you know, what's the financial burden for the property, taking into consideration the area that's located in, you know, and does it generally, would a demolition be necessary in this case, and would it also echo the goals of the city's comprehensive plan? I would say there's other information that the board would see as helpful in making the determination to let the applicant know tonight, or let us as staff know. We can communicate that with the applicant.
I'm sorry, I would like to see the record of the abatement.
Okay.
With the,
I think the backup for the
Okay. That's all from staff.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next and final but large is an application from the Albany County Land Bank for 45 Live Street, 164 and 66 Livingston Street, 169 Second Street, 251 Third Street, 403 and 407 First Street, and 453 Oak Street. This is also the demolition of 8 buildings. So this action is demolition of the first appearance. Applicant is here. Ready to go.
Hey everyone, I'm Will Glenn, the Planning and Projects Manager for the Albany County Land Bank. We're requesting demolition review for 8 properties. All of these properties are located primarily in 3 neighborhoods: the South End, Arbor Hill, and West Hill. So here's the map. So 2 of them are basically one structure on 2 lots, and that would be 164 and 66 Livingston Avenue. 403 and 407 are one away from each other. 45 Lytle Street, and I believe the rest of them are all single properties scattered throughout the city and not within any of the land banks for other project areas. And so I just wanted, that's part of the reason that we are requesting the demolition of these properties. So just to get a little background, in 2021 and 2022 New York State budget, New York State land banks were awarded $60 million total to further our mission throughout the state. We received $1.8 million from New York State HCR, who's in charge of administering that, and $1.2 million specifically for demolition. The rest is for pre-development costs and as well as the rehab of 48 and 52nd South End, which, yeah, so, and again, these properties were chosen based either on the time in our inventory, the condition of the buildings, the impact on public safety, and in part, and what goes into the feasibility of redevelopment. Again, is we have different project areas where we have other projects that we're working on, where we think we can create the market for some of these new construction and rehabs of these buildings. These ones, for the most part, are standalone. And so we don't believe that these are feasible to rehab. If you look at the estimated rehab costs, we're looking at $225 to $250 per square foot. That's based on some of our other projects that we are able to get funded. In particular, 163 Second Street, we actually found a developer who was interested in rehabbing it, putting it through a state program called Legacy Cities, which provides up to $150,000 subsidy to rehab, and they couldn't make the numbers work on that. So that one actually came out of that project. And same with some of the other ones. 45 Lytle Street, we actually had a buyer for, and that one ended up with a title issue. Something that we don't think we can fix in the short term, and the condition of the property has only gotten worse. Same with 453 Elk Street, we had actually sold, and the buyer was unable to do the rehab. We were able to get the property back though, so it wouldn't continue. So it wouldn't stay in the condition that it was. But once we got it back, we realized it was in pretty bad shape. The rest are other ones that have been in our inventory for quite a while. some as early as 2016, the second year that the land bank was actually in existence. So, without any sort of interest from developers or people who wanted to make it local. So,
Is the date on 45 Live Street? Right?
yep, so those were part of like a row of homes that were built around that time. And actually, I think the chair of our board actually built them. But yeah. And we're actually in the process of trying to build new homes on that street. Yeah, so yeah, right now we don't, I mean, it's the condition that they are in the cost of construction. We don't have a plan to rebuild on sites at this point. We'll continue to work with different developers in the area that we have contacts with to try and get it either in a larger project or something that they're already working on. But right now, the real plan is to get it to in one of our lot sale programs. So we have to spend a little, get a lot program that we sell to the adjacent neighbor for $100 as long as they show that they have the capacity to keep it up and have a viable plan for it. And we actually just started another program that literally provides these lots for $100 all in, including closing costs for some of the most tough properties. As long as that buyer lives in the neighborhood, they can show whether it's at the lot. So yeah, I mean, this is our general demolition debris diversion plan. And we really kind of put the onus on the demolition contractor at this point, but we can put it in our RFPs that there is a requirement. So yeah, and this is really the plan that I would do to demolition, build demolition to 6 inches below grade, grade, and then I talked about some of our other programs. So yeah, here are some photos. So 169 2nd Street is the one we tried to get into Legacy Cities. All these photos come from the engineering report. There were concerns with the foundation. Most of these, the biggest concerns are going to be with the foundation and the roof, water damage. Two very expensive items, especially if we don't think that we can then get the property and just the hands of someone who can rehab it. So here's 166. This is 164, and actually you can kind of see 166 are attached to each other. These have been deteriorating for a very long time. We eventually had to stop marketing it and do an interior walkthrough so people could actually go online and see the building. But yeah, these are both in, again, the roof and foundation. Here you can see there really isn't 403 Street. 07 First Street. 251 3rd Street. This is one that someone had started gutting and rehabbing. But once we went in, we realized that they probably should not have started gutting it because it was not fortified structurally very well. 153 Elk Street, again, this is the one that was returned to us. And so the foundation. 45 Live Street, this is the one that was built in 1990. Oh, I got.
Okay.
We looking at
My
Julie.
comments, I.
Absolutely.
Address, yeah.
Please, for those that may have missed it, one line.
Julie Lundgren, 51 First Avenue, Albany, New York. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of the Stuart Albany Foundation, a board member, and these comments represent my comments and those of Karen Macklin, the Director of Preservation Services, Mr. Albany. So we have comments on three of the properties. Some of them are based on the inability to assess fully what the condition is for the reports, although they are quite detailed. We'll start with 169 Second Street, built in 1900. It was called unsafe in the demo application, but the land bank engineering report indicates otherwise. It notes some foundation cracks, it's typical for a building at this stage, but a building that is otherwise sound, quote, square, quote, with interior finished plaster walls and ceilings largely intact. And no access restrictions. In other words, it's safe. So the photos showed a lot of trash inside, so it was hard to fully assess the interior or get a feel for it. But the home had been cared for pretty recently before land bank owned it. It's now 6 years, so it's hard to know how much deterioration had occurred. The report does not fully substantiate the need to tear it down. It does need roof stabilization to prevent further damage, but a more careful assessment of rehab costs and opportunity is warranted. The land bank is owned it for 6 years, but the house is surrounded by other small homes of the same age, and it's really important to the neighborhood. So our hope is that it could be saved, although we heard tonight that a lot of effort has gone into trying to find a buyer. 45 Live Street has been owned by the land bank since 2020 and is a temporary building. Kara Macree's comment on this was just a concern for the shared wall with 43 Live, that if demolished, their 43 should be insulated and reclad with exterior siding at the expense of the land bank, since it would be the land bank removing the exterior wall of 43, and which is occupied. And finally, 164 and 166 Livingston Street. Yes, they are in rough condition. But the engineering report, again, doesn't quite concur with some of the application. The engineering report states that the exterior is intact and plumbed, though there are a number of leaks. These were built in 1872, so some of our older properties. They predate the 1848 fire in this neighborhood. And although there is little historic fabric left of these buildings, they don't seem completely beyond saving. And the neighbors have expressed some interest in having them occupied rather than being torn down. So again, a little more detail on that engineering assessment to properly assess the interior for feasibility of stabilization. So, thank you.
Any questions from the board? If there is any action on this, but we have any comments from staff?
Comments would just be, and I think you have mentioned this, prior application as well, but just that it's, unlisted action, under secret. And in this case, because there's funding, I'd recommend declaration. We need to see, and that can be done at the next meeting as well. Here, so we have the information on the age, roughly the average would be 112 years old. The properties are located in two different zoning districts, the R2, the RT, so the two-family residential zoning district and townhouse residential zoning district. And just understanding and taking into account the differing purposes of these two districts between each other, but also in other zoning districts within the city, and that they typically, always would typically have detached dwellings offering, a variety of size to the properties. In some cases, some of these properties are not always sets directly adjacent to the property or the building on the adjacent lot, although that differs from property to property. We also just have some information on the assessment valuations for these properties, which range from a low of 21,000 to a high of 112,000. That's, not always based on the most current information that some of these assessors been out there yesterday or today going and looking through these properties, but it's the latest what we have from now. This the ownership of these properties, we have that as well. So we, staff had provided a table with the date acquired valuation for each. This application is also forwarded to the Albany County Planning Board for referral under the municipal law, and we're just waiting for them to provide a recommendation on these. Again, that was true for the previous property as well. So no action to the final determination can be made on this. But we could ask for additional information or there's additional details that we'd like to specify for further consideration. Similarly, it's done with the review criteria established in 275-505-7C, which really just goes over, alternatives, where there other options saw for this, the properties where they marketed, does the demolition of these properties lead to a future land use that would be appropriate on their future plans for the property? So some of that we heard a little bit about tonight, but the additional information the board wishes, we can certainly request. The end of what I have, I think I would just say that, there's some information that we, I think it was, I could have been public comment that we'd like to see the engineering report, but there's any additional comments, staff, questions, the answer.
I think I'd be interested in seeing a little bit more detail on, or kind of explore the First Street.
Okay.
And then there was a comment that was made, so you said demolition is less than the cost of rehabbing. Did I get that right?
Demolition,
I think
Cost.
demolition costs like $225 to $250.
I get that's right.
And then, and what,
well, demolition,
or maybe it was.
that's the
Right,
reason.
the cost of rehabbing. Demolition.
Demolition is gonna be between 40 and 80,000. Depending on the site.
And then 225 per square foot is sort of that.
So that's based on our other projects that we were able to get funding for. So yeah, that's just based on the average. And again, the condition of these buildings, I think really, I think that for the most part, would be higher.
I have a question just regarding the spend a little, get a lot. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
It is a great name. Just curious if you have any information on how, like, on the success of that program, like if neighbors do end up buying it, is there any tracking of like how well the spaces are maintained or how they're used? Any like kind of average amounts of data on what that ends up playing out like and how it impacts the neighborhood?
Yeah, well, if you wouldn't mind just sitting down.
Sorry.
Yeah, we have it for the record. Thank you.
For the most part, it's anecdotal. We don't necessarily keep like, we don't go to every lot and just see how each is, but I mean, it's popular among the community and it seems to go well. I mean, not every disposition when we have, over 1,000 is this place, perfect, but I think anecdotally.
Emotion plans like this, I hope it's always to get a proposal right behind it. Not quite the case, right? It's just basically always building all in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
So that's a little.
and ultimately it's based on the fact that as these stay vacant, it's definitely more susceptible to break-in, public safety issues, fires, stuff like that, and people don't necessarily. See close to it. So yeah, that's something to see. And I think 403 First Street specifically, I think that's the smaller. And some of the concerns with that, I believe, are with the size. 7 feet, and we have been really good fine funding for something that small, and especially 225. And then market for. But yeah, I didn't see if there's any further clarification.
That was a little more beat up then. Yeah, right, right. I'm not sure that is. Say. But was it 07? Yeah, the Rosie Allen.
Small.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's
Yeah.
seven on the bottom, 407.
For the most part, there's lots to the neighborhood. Building is all very specific. We're working on a project right now that we estimate $7 million project for one building, like 15 buildings a month. It's tough to make the numbers work, especially when you actually go to sell them and you don't.
Just speak to how these eight were selected, that might help just with the context, when it has with other properties that how these were arrived as a priority.
And can I piggyback on that? Just, even thinking about like how I know you say it's been tough to find buyers, just think about what are some of the marketing efforts and how long you typically try to get a buyer or we have fund or something before.
Yeah, so for the most part, most of these buildings, minus a few, maybe, I think maybe only two of them stopped marketing and we were worried about the condition. That was 164, 166 actually, or 164, 166 was actually also deteriorating. We wouldn't take it because there were squatters and the county wouldn't take it. So we weren't able to get that until recently. Sorry, good question.
I think Avi's question was
Oh.
first.
Yep, sorry.
Regarding like how you came to the decision for each of these.
Yes, so for the most part, these are really the toughest of the top properties to rehab, based on size, condition. And most of the other properties either are going to put an application, or we have been able to find, developers who are interested in this property. So there are there's really one major program at the state level called Legacy Cities. It provides $150,000 per unit subsidy to rehab some of these properties. And it really, that's what it takes to rehab it and then be able to sell it for price. So we're looking at first project is this month or so. And then we have another applicant currently looking at 8 buildings. And then we have the first applicant, the second phase. For those, we're not going to put this at this point, but really with the available money from the state, really so this is an opportunity to kind of clear out some of these properties that we don't anticipate being able to sell based on the rehab costs and interest from developers.
You must partner with Habitat for a while.
Yes, yep, we're actually working, yeah, we work with them. We received, we were their co-applicant for ARPA money they got, and a few months ago, we requested the demolition of 3032 for Albany Street. We actually do plan to build new housing there, which I think will pay the expense. Where we can build new, we definitely go all out to make sure.
Any further questions? So, very workshops. There's no action today, so there is a motion, we can adjourn. Without objection, we are adjourned. Close. Do you have about 4 or 5 things? Okay, so I'll send it over tomorrow.
I know.
I just had that question.